Welcome to Tools for Time Traveling, the podcast equipping creators to build the future today. Because the future isn't something that just happens to you, it's built by creators of all stripes.
Every episode, we'll talk to a creative industry expert to get a behind the curtains look at the past and present of our creative industries, so you can gain that unfair advantage as you build out the future of your career. This season, we're focusing on music creators and providing strategic tools that help them navigate this often disrupted industry as they take control of their future.
All right, now let's jump into the episode. What's up, time travelers? We're back again with another episode. This is Tools for Time Traveling, the podcast equipping creatives to build the future today. I'm Gavin Guidry, creative director, content creator. Sometimes I shoot some photos, sometimes I shoot some videos.
And I'm Desmond Dickerson, futurist and strategist and consultant, depending on the day.
Awesome. And anybody that's been on this journey with us, we've been recording several episodes about what's the future of creativity, more specifically, what's the future of music. We've been talking to a lot of industry experts. We've been using some great frameworks from Desmond about how do we actually think about the future in a way that we can actually help ourselves get there. So all we wanted to do was just slow down and take some time to draw connections and pull out insights from some of our past guests to give you that unfair advantage when you're in there in the workplace, you're in the marketplace, you are trying to put out a distinct creative offering for yourself and your audience. And what we're going to talk about today is one of the more surprising things that we pulled out when talking to our guests. And that is that there is no future of music without empathy.
Yeah. In many ways, the future of music is really kind of reflective on the future of society at large. So what we started to see was this intersection between mental health and music as a two-way street. You've got the fans on one hand that are seeking out, music. Sometimes it helps them to just get through a rough time, or at times it can just help them to relax when their mind is racing. And then on the other hand, you've got musicians. They themselves, they're seeking out, therapy or mental wealth services, and they're just trying to find some peace from the trappings of fame and, all that their musical success brings them.
So something else that we gathered in having these conversations is also, it seems like the modern music industry has really left mental health behind, mental health, empathy, and the seeking flourishing for their artists. They've left that behind sort of in pursuit for higher profits and making sure that they stay afloat. But they've kind of ensured that they stay afloat and stay profitable over the actual mental health and well-being of their artists. And that's one thing that we talked with Mike Walbert about, actually. He gave us some really good insights into what the future of music could look like and how it could be impacted by the burnout that people are feeling in today's society.
I think that report about mental health and women, like body image, I think through Instagram or Facebook came out. I think that's actually more of an indicator of the future than metaverse right now, because I actually think that once a ton of these studies come out about what all these things are doing to people, I think we're going to be a little bit more deliberate about how we program technology to serve us to the betterment of our mental and physical health than to serve corporations to get all of our dollars and time. Yeah. But I think once people realize, not that people are selling stuff to you, because I don't fucking sell me everything I want, I don't care. But once people realize like the long-term impacts that has on you, like your self-esteem, your friendships, your relationships, and studies come out about that stuff, then we actually are going to have to take a look in the mirror and be like, all right, is this worth it? Like, is this connectivity and the entertainment, the 6 hours of, day some people are getting of entertainment, is that worth the social good? Are we better than we were before this?
Man, I so love that insight from Mike. I think this was really surprising for us because we were talking with Mike about the future of live events, right? So we were talking about the metaverse and Web3 and what music's role and live events role will be. But then we ended in a place where we were talking about mental health, and empathy. And it was really surprising to notice that mental health may actually be a better indicator of the future than the metaverse is. Where we are right now in society with Web 2, right? The onset of
Hmm.
social media and social sharing and falling into the comparison trap. It's changed our brain and the way that we engage with one another. It changes our relationships. And I think that the future, people are really going to want to turn the tides on that. And that can really indicate what people want and need out of the internet, out of technologies, and also out of the things that they're consuming as well.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So, that forces us as we start to, turn toward the future and think about like what the paradigm shifters could be here. It really comes down to, building more empathy into these future technologies. Empathy that will allow for human flourishing, right? So we already
Mhm.
know folks turn to music for that, to flourish. They turn it for motivation or to uplift them or whatever that is. So it just feels like we could really be on the cusp of something where we're leading with that element in music technology, leading with that element of,
Yeah.
of empathy and upliftment, to really push people forward, as opposed to just like everything being like, how do we squeeze value or profit
Yeah.
out of every little bit here?
Yeah, exactly. I think we need to stop looking at music as a way to chase the dollar and get rich. Like who said anything about getting rich?
Mm,
Music has a lot of value beyond just making money. It's a tool for a lot of other things. We've talked about it being a tool for connection.
yep.
And so, it's so much more than just chasing the dollar.
Yeah, yeah, man. It's funny to hear you say that because it's like like father, like son. When we talked to your dad, we talked to Demet Gidry, about this very thing. Just kind of that emphasis on the monetization and the economic processes behind it all. It was just really interesting to see his take on that and kind of how music was starting to shift and be a little bit more like some of the other industries.
Back in the day prior to that, prior to 2000, 2002, there was always a separation of church and state. And what I meant by that in the music industry, record labels were just that. They were record labels. They would advance money, create the record, market the record, put the record out, and they would balance their profits against the revenue of the record. And they would pay a royalty to the artist, et cetera, et cetera. Well, in an environment where the technology companies are now running the business, it cuts down, on their profits because now they're dictating the profit margins. It's going to be 99 cents for a single. That was the first thing. Or it's going to be $1.29 for a single. We're going to dictate the prices where before our profit margins were huge. We were selling CDs for 20 bucks. At the end of the day, it may have cost me $1.35, all in. And so that, so we went through that period. So the money grab was, let's take ancillary rights. Let's do the 360 deal. So if I blow you up and you turn out to be Beyonce, I'm eating off the Pepsi commercial. I'm going to eat off your touring. I'm going to eat off your publishing. Where before all those things were separate. Your verticals were your verticals. Here's my record company, but I also have a touring agency. I've got a television agent. I did my own publishing deal. I've got my own merchandising deal. And now all of those rights, when an artist goes to sign with a major record label, because they've repositioned themselves as rights holders in content companies, it now allows them to eat on all of those revenue streams from said artists.
Yeah.
For the labels, it's a great risk. It's a low risk because you're not paying in advance on those other streams. Some artists and some lawyers that are savvy, they manage to, get a little bit of the money up, get extra advance for all of these different things. But by and large, they're getting them for free. So if the artist doesn't blow up, they never have to exploit those revenue streams, um, and because they don't even have the expertise, to exploit them, they kind of get let off the hook. And then along comes a Cardi B or something like that, and then they make all their money back for the other 20 that they threw up against the wall and it didn't stick, because they're able to eat on all of her sponsorship deals, her touring, everything. So she becomes, sort of like a corporate artist.
Yeah, so as your dad was saying, like the main thing I pulled out of that is that we're seeing record labels, music labels, they're starting to become more like VCs, more like those venture capitalists in the tech industry, right? Where it's like, hey, I've got this whole portfolio. Let me just, throw a whole bunch of stuff at the wall, see what sticks, and like, cool, we'll double down on what works, and then whatever else it is, we just cut them and like let them keep it moving.
Yeah, and it's almost like instead of viewing artists as people, labels have sort of like resorted to this business model where they're treating artists like stocks. And they buy and sell rather than develop. Like, they look to cash out when they can, and that has to do like quite the number on the psyche of an artist, right? Like,
absolutely.
They're sort of like doing this because it feels the most lucrative way to go about business, but it's contributing to the burnout of these artists, which I think in turn is hurting the industry and the product in the long run, because we're not going to be getting as good of a product, in the long run, essentially.
Yeah. And, they don't even have to look too far to find what the future solution could be for this, because this is like this model, this is fairly new. Like previously labels like Motown, right? They had the model where it was all about artist development. They might bring someone in who's young, maybe they're a little raw, super talented as a singer. Like, hey, let's get them with the right band. Let's get them, the right stage presence and show them how to, work a stage, work a crowd, work an audience, get them with songwriters to really tap into their emotions, what they feel, and then relate that to their audiences. And, a big part of that was like A&Rs, right? The artists and repertoire, who, in kind of the digital era, the 2000s, they've kind of been shut out of the industry a little bit, and we don't see that development quite as much. So it really just has us thinking, or has me wondering, what's that next game changer going to be? What do you think like needs to happen next to really like pivot us back to a good direction?
Yeah, honestly, like I think it would be game changing if labels were actually incentivized to develop artists, right? Like allow these artists, give them the tools for time traveling. Shameless plug. Give them the tools to exploit more of their verticals besides just touring, which becomes the easiest, most obvious thing to exploit, right? But like, if we are really developing artists, if we're not just relying on Instagram and TikTok to be A&Rs, we could really pour into these artists, which helps them make better music, but also helps them become better performers, better salespeople, better actors, better connectors to people, better human beings in general, which I think in the long run, it's not good if you're trying to buy, sell like stocks, but it is good if you're invested in the long-term success of a person or of an artist, of a creator.
Yeah. And, I think that this approach, we saw a terrific example. When we talked to Erin Knight, she really talked to us about how she incorporates this into, everything she does with the artists that she represents and the artists that she works with.
Build Your Own Dreams is my dream to be whatever I want to be. And so it's the company that houses that. So under the lifestyle brand, we sell t-shirts. Say Build Your Own Dreams. And we also have a line of therapy tees, but all of our t-shirts, all of our merchandise goes to sending creatives to therapy, right? Because you can't live your own dream. You can't build your own dream if your mental health is messed up, right? You could get there and everything looks from the outside in like it's supposed to be, but you're in shambles. I've been there. I know what that feels like. I know how isolating victory can be. I personally understand the heavy is the head that wears the crown, right? So these things, win doesn't come without sacrifice. And a lot of times the sacrifice is the quality of your mental health, right? And so we take the shirts. We give our artists more than fair deals, and we're very generous. And I don't say that to brag. I'm saying that because it should be the standard. We should care about people. We should be giving, right? Especially as a community. When you give, that just begets more giving, and generosity begets wealth, right? And wealth is multifaceted. It's not just about money. And so I know the more that I talk about what I do, the more that I'm opening eyes and ears to what the future should be, right? And so, yeah, we're very generous with our artist deals. So I couldn't find any more money to give them to go to therapy, right? So then I was like, well, maybe we can make this a community project. If we sell shirts and we tell other people that you're going to send Black people to therapy by purchasing a shirt, now we're helping to heal our own community, but you look cool while you're doing it and you're inspiring others. Every time you walk past somebody and the shirt says build your own dreams, that's like a hug. That's like a high five. That's like a, man, you got this. Or that's like a, damn, I needed to hear that, you know?
So what we found in this conversation with Aaron and really throughout like all these conversations is that it can actually be lucrative for creatives, when they start to tap into this development, tap into specifically like, mental wellness. And, what we found from her is that that's her biggest investment is, sending her artists to therapy. And, when it's baked into the business model, it's something that's just like, it's critical. The artists know like, hey, you care about them, you care about their well-being, and it's not something that feels like, it's just a charity or it's just a thing that I'm doing. It's like, no, like, we're driving this business. In her instance, it's selling merchandise in order to, fund this other element or invest in this other element of artist development or this really important part of building up artists, and then it just ties right back into the art they're able to make. Artists, creatives that are more empathetic, they're better able to like tap into their emotions, connect with audiences, come up with solutions, come up with products, services, whatever that is, that allows them to just understand people better. That's like a critical element of like product design and innovation or like design thinking is empathy. It only makes sense that's being emphasized by her. And what we feel honestly is like, we started to think like, maybe this means that there's going to be like a widespread adoption of it, and that could better prepare music creators for the emotional rigors of life in the music industry, right? We see so much with like the 27 club, right? Of so many artists that don't make it past 27 because, the music industry just ripped them apart emotionally and mentally. They weren't able to, just kind of fight through some of those things. So hopefully this could emerge as one of those things that could combat that.
Yeah, I think we're also thinking like maybe this means that creative development isn't actually the most important thing when it comes to developing creatives. Like maybe actually looking after their mental health is, or improving people's emotional intelligence could be the most important thing when it comes to developing creatives. Creativity requires pieces of the soul. So I think it's really important to teach people how to take care of that soul. You know what I mean? Like, like Aaron said, it's impossible to chase your own dreams, to build your own dreams if your mental health is messed up, So I think it would just be game changing to introduce counseling services or even introduce a new kind of artist development that includes mental wellness services or counseling services for creatives. This is something that already exists. You know what I mean? So if you're someone, you work at a label, you manage artists, and this is a part of your day to day, and not just the future. We would love to hear. Please, like, scroll down, leave a comment, let us know what it is that you're doing, because we really do see that as a signal of what the future could be, and a potential game changer for opportunity when it comes to creating the future of music. You know, maybe there's even just like therapy through creative production, right? Like some people might not want to go sit on a couch. Some people might not want to have a, you know, straight up one-to-one conversation with a counselor or with a therapist. Maybe there's a way to really tap into creating and letting that be catharsis, letting that be therapy for people who communicate and sort of express themselves through creative means. Talking for myself here, you know, sometimes making videos is a way for me to express myself in a way that I can't do with words. So like, what if we were actually able to operationalize that? Yeah. So, you know, I think this is good evidence for how caring about mental health and having empathy can potentially be lucrative for creatives, but I think it could also be lucrative for the tech world, building products, and like the business side of music. And that's what we talked about quite a bit with Wes Pendleton. He is an entrepreneur, a creator of products. He's a venture capitalist himself. And he talked with us a lot about the intersection of his music and mental health.
The one thing that I realized through my music production is people paid attention to my music production because it helped them specifically to study. It helped them during their quiet time, during prayer, meditation. People used it for yoga. And I found this out almost by accident, by going back through the tens of thousands of playlists that I was on that I had no idea that I was on, and finding out that like hundreds and thousands of these playlists had the same title. So as an entrepreneur, it's like, well, damn, like I'm giving Spotify and Apple Music like all of this money for creating this music that I did one time. How am I not taking advantage of that? And so now I go into the mindfulness and wellness industry to find out what's going on in this space, because obviously that's what these people are using this for. They're using it for wellness and they're using it for mindfulness. So come to find out, man, $1 billion industry, and like nobody knows, you know, outside of the people that are inside of it. But the one thing that I did not like about all of these platforms was the music was terrible. That was the one thing that I noticed. And so again, being a guy who's already created sounds that are on the top 100 every day, every time you turn on the radio, you hear sounds that myself and my team have created. How can we take the same systems that we created to build this one thing and now build inside of this space where now we're building we're building sounds specifically made for mindfulness and mental well-being. And that'll be our focus getting into this space. And then we'll have things like breathing techniques and one-on-one coaching and all that stuff. But the music needs to be the main thing. Why? Because music is secondary and tertiary on the other platforms.
The music was terrible. Man, you have to do those people like that, man.
I was about to say, like, that was probably like my favorite comment from the whole conversation. But the insight, the key insight there, although the music is terrible, it's still a multi-billion-dollar industry, you know, wellness and well-being and therapy industry. But it's already reliant on these audio services. Like, it's funny how I didn't think about music as a key, but so much of meditation and wellness is like the listening experiences. You know, you might be hitting a gong and people are like, you know, thinking about how you meditate there, or, you know, certain soundscapes like, you know, a running river, or, you know, just a really soothing voice. People think audio first when they think of therapy, you know, over like visuals, I would imagine. So yeah, it was still, you know, kind of a surprise to hear like how those things are connected.
Totally. And, you know, I think this could mean, like, you know, we've talked before about how music is a tool for connection, how music has such a high index of content utility. It has the power to be more than just a tool for, you know, selling a record, streaming a record. Again, tool for connection. And I think we're seeing in this case, it could also be a tool for mental health. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And as we start to think about that, I think that there are many ways to think about like what the future could be here, right? Like
Yeah.
what a game changer it could be if there was just more of a crossover between music and then these mental health apps, right? Some sort of integration between technologies, or maybe it doesn't have to be a technology thing. It's interesting. One of the biggest like music moments of the year of last year was Stranger Things, right? Running up that hill, and that song, and just how that became a big moment. But that started off with like psychology.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Like they talked about, and like, all my Stranger Things fans will know, but like a big part of that season was how they use like for even like the criminally insane for their purposes, but like in psychiatry they actually do use music to help with people's therapy and recovery. So I really do think that a takeaway from this could be that like creating some sort of like crossover between music and mental health apps, like some sort of integration between music streaming and some sort of like therapy platform could be like fertile territory for innovation in music in the future. You know what I mean? Like taking it a step beyond just Find My Happiness playlist on Spotify, and really like finding the scientific connections between different BPMs, melodies, and things like that. And finding a way that can actually provide like where you stream this music can also be some sort of treatment or something like that. So I think there's potential crossover collaboration that can happen between the two industries.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've covered a good bit of ground here on the future of creativity, the future of music, and how integral we feel that empathy and mental wellness is going to be as a part of that. As we said at the kickoff, Gavin said this when we first started this episode, there is no future of music without empathy, right? So a few of the things that we discussed is, first of all, just the studies that are now emerging about the tech impact on mental health and, how negative it's been, unfortunately. So what we see from that, the key takeaway there is that the future of music technology needs to emphasize empathy and well-being. Otherwise, we'll wind up even worse than we are right now, right? Another element that we saw is that, labels have kind of traded in their empathy that they had before to take this like portfolio driven approach where they're really like emulating kind of the VC model. There's not as much development as we saw in years past. It's really just like a buying and selling of stocks to see what wins and what loses, and kind of cutting the folks that aren't around. So again, a game changer we're hoping to see there in the future of music is a return to artist development. And as we talk about artist development, the way that we'd love to see that happen more and more is exactly how Erin Knight is using it, right? She explained the emphasis that she's placed on mental health and how lucrative that can be for music businesses or music artists themselves. So she's investing heavily into these types of services. And really, we think that if the rest of the music industry adopts that, it's going to be revolutionary, not just for musicians, but, hopefully for society at large. And as we talk about that, kind of taking it full circle back to the tech element, right? We know that music is already being used for therapeutic purposes. And when we talked to Wes Pendleton, he let us in on how, there's that kind of element with the tech apps and the tech streaming of music and, people using that to get, therapy, get, mindfulness or meditation music. But there's really just like untapped potential and fertile ground for there to be more of an integration between music services and sounds that get you in a right place for mindfulness, but also the science behind it all, and some sort of innovations there that help listeners or people that just need some sort of therapeutic help to understand the types of music they need to listen to, the types of sounds that are specifically tailored for them, their life, and putting them in the right place mentally. So,
Yeah.
while we do see, some potential for challenges as we move forward into the future of music, I think leading with empathy is gonna, just
Yep.
be a big win for everyone. It leads to artists that are more inventive. They're braver and better able to connect with their audiences, and we see that as really just like a shining trend that needs to be embraced more and more in the future of music.
Yes, well said, well said. And so, these key takeaways, right? These game changers, these insights that we're finding, these are but a canvas, fuel for you innovators, you creators out there, to sort of go forward and find the real solutions. We hope that these just inspire you to find answers, create solutions where maybe there aren't any right now. Be a design thinker, and think and prototype how we go from where we are now to where we can be in the future. And so, yeah, we're curious to hear from you. What are ways that we can make the future of music more empathetic for the creators and their audiences who are playing a part? We'd love to hear from you. If you scroll down on Spotify, you can answer a Q&A or a poll that we have down there, or YouTube. Obviously, you could leave a comment. But we'd love to hear more from all of you. And of course, do the follows, likes, and subscribes and everything, so you guys get notified when we release more content. Yeah. But yeah, from there, I think that's about a wrap. It's been great. Thanks for listening to us talk about the future of creativity. And let's gear up to build the future that we want to see. Peace.